Welcome to our YouTube video series on employment law. My name's Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal. And in this particular YouTube video, we're going to be discussing the underpayment of terminated hourly employees in Alberta. And what we're talking about is primarily focusing on individuals who have been terminated or fired without cause or permanently laid off from their employment with a larger company, oftentimes an oil and gas company. But this may also be of application to individuals who have resigned from their employment and those individuals who have been terminated with cause. So what am I talking about? Well, unfortunately, what happens is people get so locked into a couple key items when it comes to termination that they fail to dig deeper oftentimes into what is included in the termination package, what their pay has been previous to that, such that they get the core basics. And even sometimes with lawyers, they do this in the sense that they get an arrangement and they look at it, they take it to a lawyer briefly looks at it and says, we could fight this. This is about right as to how much time you should be getting with respect to severance. The termination is in accordance with the Employment Standards Code, and they proceed to simply take the package, and they don't really necessarily look deeper. And it's only when you look deeper that oftentimes you're able to find what seems to be a common pattern with respect to a lot of termination packages and pay packages that are out there in Alberta for these larger companies, especially for hourly employees, in the sense that there's underpayments being made, a range of underpayments. And those underpayments by themselves might seem to be small, but as you start adding them up, you start adding the numbers up, and you start off and there's an underpayment in this portion of $20,000, $5,000 here, $1,000, a couple $1,000 there. The money can quickly accumulate, and it makes the whole aspect of pursuing the employer who has just recently terminated you, permanently laid you off, fired you, or like I said, even some cases where you've resigned, appropriate, because there is money that may well be properly owing to yourself. It just becomes a question as to how do you look to attain it. And in some of these circumstances, and I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but there are ways to get it, to force the employers to get it, and to force the overall package to be increased. But the fact of the matter is, you have to look at it, you have to engage with the right professionals and see if it's available to yourself. It might not be. They might be doing everything to the T and overpaying you on your termination pay, on your severance pay. It's entirely possible. But really, when you think about it, do you really think that most employers are, especially when you're going out the door, are wanting to pay you over what they owe you? And if they've been making mistakes, do you think they're wanting to, they'll need to correct those mistakes, but do you really think that they're going to say, well, we might be making a mistake with respect to our calculation, so we're going to increase the payment by some amount? Well, don't think that typically happens, because at the end of the day, employers are typically out for themselves. You know that, I know that, everybody knows that. So the fact of the matter is, you may well be getting a haircut when it comes to how much you're getting paid on your termination. There might be a lot of numbers that are being left on the table that you don't fully realize are out there. And you really should get somebody who will assess it and let you know whether or not there is money worthwhile pursuing as against your employer. And the way I think of this is, our approach is go to another lawyer, ask them what they think they can do for yourself. And if you want, let us go through our review process. We're not going to necessarily in this video explain what our process is, but what we'll tell you is that if you commit to our process and you feel that the numbers that we say are quite possibly attainable based on our review of the information that we ask for, there might well be ability to collect significantly more money for yourself on your termination. And given what we've seen and given how we see there is underpayments across the board when it comes to hourly employees in particular in the province of Alberta, what does it really hurt you to get out there, inquire to ourselves as to whether or not there might possibly be a means for you to collect more? And given the way that we approach it, the cost to you might be minimal. First of all, the cost of reviewing there's not going to be a cost for you to review it. We won't necessarily go through all our secrets or what we feel are, let's say, trade secrets with respect to how we approach it. But we'll go review it. We'll lay out what we think might well be possible to pursue, and then you make the determination. And we also have ways that we can pursue these matters so that the cost to yourself might not be as great as you might otherwise think. And that's always a factor. It's a major factor when it comes to reviewing termination and severance packages and fighting over them. And the companies know this well. Companies understand that. When you go to a lawyer and they push back and they say, file a lawsuit. Well, first of all, in Alberta, you got to pay your $250 just to file your lawsuit, let alone to write up the lawsuit, to go through all the paper, all the research and the like. So right away, we're talking about several $1,000s just to fight. And people go, why would I spend several $1,000s when I might not be really getting that much? Thing is, there might be a lot more to be gained. And the other thing is, and if you hear this, is that there might be a way to get your net significantly more. And this is the key thing. It's not how much more you're going to gain, in fact. It's what your net result is going to be. So you got to take off those expenses of the lawyers. You got to consider what this might have from an impact standpoint of not getting the money right away. But there's ways to try to push that forward. So we got these considerations that need to be considered. And for your sake, you're not going to be impacted by having another lawyer, a first lawyer, a second lawyer, a third lawyer, review your documentation, review your circumstances, and provide you the honest assessment as to where you stand relative to pursuing such a case as against your employer, or really in this case, your former employer, because there might be considerable amount of money available to yourself. So if there is that opportunity to pursue that matter, to get $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more net. I'm not talking about to get before paying the lawyer. I'm talking about getting that money net, maybe even more than that. Why not speak to ourselves or even speak to other lawyers who might be similarly inclined to give you some assessment as to where you stand with respect to what you can still claim against your former employer? But take the time. Look at it. Find out if you're entitled, because what we've seen is that a lot of hourly employees that are working for big companies, especially the big petroleum companies who are terminated in Alberta, are being grossly underpaid in many respects. And there's considerable amount of money that should be available to yourself that's being left on the table and that you should be pursuing. Because that's money that is owed to yourself, and it's money that you are entitled to, you should be pursuing. And if you pursue it the correct way, and this is a critical thing, you pursue it the correct way, you should be able to net out more than you think you can net out. And that's the key, how much you net out. And that's what you need to be doing. You need to protect yourself, you need to protect your family's financial situation, and you need to get what you are entitled to. And that's what we look to do. So if this is of interest to yourself, our contact information is available. Please feel free to engage with ourselves. We'll go through what our process is with respect to reviewing these packages, how we proceed, what kind of commitment we look from yourself. And, well, it's always our arrangement, I should say, the arrangement that we look to put in place, because there's a lot we're trying to do here, and not in every circumstance can we find this, but what we believe is there's a lot of circumstances that allow us to take a course of action that has not been heavily and aggressively pursued to our knowledge and to our insights, that should enable you to get substantially more when you are terminated as an hourly employee in the province of Alberta. So we look forward to hearing from you and talking to you soon enough. Thank you.